Today what we're going to work on is the gauss-jordan elimination method. So gauss-jordan elimination is solving a system of equations until you get a reduced row echelon form. Reduced row echelon form. Now we know what row echelon form is. That's when you have the one row echelon is when we have the 1, 1, 1. Okay, so now we want to get a reduced row echelon form. So a reduced row echelon form is when every column that has a leading coefficient of a 1, like this one here, has zeros in every position above and below it. So it would have a 0 here and here. And see, there's a 0 here. Leading coefficient is a 1, sorry. So it's a 0 above and a 0 below. And there's a 1 here, so there's zeros above. All right, so this would be an example of a reduced row echelon form. So this piece here, the end, the 5, 3, and 8, that would be your equals. And notice that you have the 1s on the diagonal. This is your x, your y, and your z, right? This is your 1x, your 1y, and your 1z. Notice that you have this triangle of zeros and a triangle of zeros here. So that's our goal. And we're going to do this by using row operations. So how to solve a system of equation using gauss-jordan elimination. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to write the system as an augmented matrix. Remember, that's the one that has the equals in it. You're going to use elementary row operations to get it in row echelon form. So we're going to get the ones on the diagonal. Continue row operations until zeros appear above and below the ones. Convert back to a linear system, and you're going to check. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put this system in matrix form. Okay, so we have set up our matrix. 1, -2, 3, ... for our equals, 9. And then we have -1, 3. Make sure you plug in that 0 for the z. -4, 2, -5, 5, 17. Okay, so let's take a look at the first row. So I look in the first row, and the first thing I want to start off with is just getting in row echelon form. So I want to get the 1s here and the 0s here. And then I'll worry about the 0s back here after I get row echelon form. So I'm going to work with getting the 1s on the diagonal and the 0s in the bottom right corner. So I already have a 1 here in the top left corner, so that's good. Now I want to work on getting this number right below it to be a 0. So I could get this to be a 0 by just adding row 1 plus row 2. So that's our first step, row 1 plus row 2. Remember, what's going to be replaced would be what you wrote second. Okay, so row 1 is 1, -2, 3, 9. And row 2 is -1, 3, 0, -4. And now we're going to add them together. So we get 0, 1, 3, 5. All right, so that's going to replace row 2. So let's rewrite this. So replace row 2. So row 1 stays the same. Row 2 is now 0, 1, 3, 5. And row 3 is -2, 5, 5, and 17. All right, so now I notice that I have a 2 down here. I want to make this 2 a 0. So I'm going to multiply row 1 by -2. So I get -2 plus 2 in row 3. Add them together, and we will get 0. So we have -2 row 1 plus row 3. So -2 row 1 is going to be -2, +4, -6, -18. Add that to row 3, which is 2, -5, 5, and 17. And together we get 0, -1, -1, -1. Okay, let's rewrite our matrix. So I have 1, -2, 3, 9. 0, 1, 3, 5. And now my new row 3, which is 0, -1, -1, -1. Okay, so I'm just going to move my stuff up. Okay, so let's see what we have. I have a 1, a 0, 0. I have a 1 in that middle position right here, but I need this right below that 1, which would be my y value. I need this to be a 0. So I just need to add row 2 with row 3. So that would be the next step. Row 2 plus row 3. So row 2 is 0, 1, 3, 5. And row 3 is 0, -1, -1, -1. And add them together. So we get 0, 0, 2, 4. So let's rewrite our matrix. So our new matrix is going to be 1, -2, 3, 9, 0, 1, 3, 5. And our new row 3, which is going to be 0, 0, 2, and 4. Okay, so now let's see what we have here. So I have a 1, 0, 0, 1, a 0. Now I need this 2 to become a 1. So in order for the 2 to become a 1, I have to do half row 3. So in order to do half row 3, I'm going to do 1/2, 0, 0, 2, 4. So I get 0, 0, 1, 2. Okay, so my new matrix is going to be 1, -2, 3, 9, 0, 1, 3, 5, and then 0, 0, 1, and then 2. Okay, so now I have it in row echelon form, right? I have my 1s on the diagonal and my triangle of zeros is over here. Now I need to get the triangle of zeros up top. So in order to make the -2 become a 0, I'm going to multiply row 2 by 2, so I get a positive 2, and add it to row 1. So it's going to be 2 row 2 plus row 1. So 2 row 2 would be 0, 2, 6, 10. And row 1 would be 1, -2, 3, 9. Add them together, I get 1, 0, 9, 19. Remember, that is my row 1. Okay, so we have row 1 now is 1, 0, 9, 19. Row 2 is 0, 1, 3, 5. And row 3 is 0, 0, 1, 2. Okay, so now I need to get this number here, the 9, to become a 0. So I'm going to multiply row 3 by -9. So we get a -9 here, get the -9 here, and add it to row 1. So it's okay, so I'm going to multiply -9 row 3 and add it to row 1. So -9 row 3 is 0, 0, -9, -18, and add that to row 1, which is 1, 0, 9, 19. So I get 1, 0, 0, 1. So now that becomes row 1. So row 1 is 1, 0, 0, 1, and then I have 0, 1, 3, 5, and 0, 0, 1, and 2. All right, so the last thing I need to do is I need to get this 3 to become a 0. So I need to multiply row 3 by -3 and add it to row 2. Okay, so it's going to be -3 row 3 plus row 2. So -3 row 3 is going to be 0, 0, -3, -6. And add it to row 2, which is 0, 1, 3, 5. So I get 0, 1, 0, -1. Okay, so row 1 stays the same. 1, 0, 0, 1. Row 2 is now 0, 1, 0, -1. Because remember, this is what I got for row 2. And row 3 is 0, 0, 1, 2. Now I have it in row echelon form. Reduced row echelon form. I have a diagonal of 1s, 0s in the corner, 0 in the corner. And then I have my equals over here. So now I'm going to write it as a matrix. So my matrix is going to be, remember, this is my 1x, my 1y, my 1z. So I have x is equal to 1, y is equal to -1, and I have z is equal to 2. And so that my solution would be 1, -1, 2. And then, of course, the last thing you have to do is you check. And, of course, you must check, always check the originals. Okay, so that's it. And we'll practice in class tomorrow. Have a good night.